Hello, everybody. Today is Tuesday, September 23rd. It's about 8 p.m., a little after 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in East Tennessee. So I just want to start off. You didn't know there are a couple special elections tonight. They're going on right now. So I'll just bring it up real quickly. It's a runoff in Georgia State Senate District. The Republican looks like he won by 15 points. It's a hold. And then there's a congressional district race in Arizona 7th, which is that southwest. It like nudges up south of Phoenix, covers the edge of Tucson. It's a Democrat district, so it should be a Democrat hold, whatever. But it's the margins. But like I've always said, you can't really tell a lot with special elections. So, what do we have today? We had the UN today. I had Trump's speech in the background while I was doing some work. I thought it was pretty good. He's doing that anti-globalist thing, but his actions aren't there. If you see my videos, you know my position on like the sanctioning. The whole Russia gas thing, the oil with the secondary sanctions, and he's right. As long as Europe's keep buying it, you can't make it work as well with other products. But then again, we also buy products, so I don't get the consistency at all with the Trump administration. We'll do secondary sanctions on India, but not China, because China has leverage on us because of the amount of things we import. We also import things from Russia that we need as well. It's a small amount, but it's important things that we don't have here or we choose not to get here. All right, so I would just like to see more consistency on the America First, front. His speech, like his speech in Saudi Arabia early in his term, was fantastic. But you haven't seen that yet, and I understand there are forces that drag him one way, and then more, especially the way we don't want to go. But so let's see where it continues. I think he uses leverage and words more so. I still wish I got to hear what was said between Trump and Putin when they were together. But anyway, that was like the big story of the day. So let's go on with a couple of the things. We'll start out with if you didn't see, I watched the whole press conference yesterday. Actually, Daniel Davis had on a stream, so I watched it through his channel on YouTube. But here's Dr. Marty McCary. For too long, we have watched an expanded autism epidemic with no good answers. Now, it was funny today. I heard like a Fox the radio on while I was in the car, and they said, they pointed out that, it's autism and the rates of autism because there's more diagnoses of it. As if I don't remember when I was a kid in the 80s, no kid exhibited any symptoms in my elementary school of autism. Okay, so don't tell me it was a misdiagnosis. Maybe one or two, what we would call weird kids, would be slightly on the spectrum, maybe, but not what we have today. And the fact that there is pushback to find out what is causing it instead of embracing it as a natural phenomenon is insane to me. They're embracing it as a natural phenomenon. Okay? Now, I don't know 100%. They're adamant about acetaminophen. We do know it causes liver problems. So why couldn't that drug, intrautero cause problems in fetal development? Why? Which is what they're now cautioning on, okay, among other things. But why couldn't any drug? Why do we just assume it? We do know one thing. They test drugs by themselves. So if you understand the vaccine schedule, okay, okay, came out, like, I don't know the deep sciences of this. I only know as a layperson of what I read, and I take the time to read some of these studies and so forth. But I do know numbers and I do know charts. And when the vaccine schedule is really changed and ramped up, there is correlation there. Okay, just like there was with certain food process additives and obesity. Those are just flags. Like a layperson can look. Here's chart A. Here's chart B. They kind of mirror. Let's take a look at this. But the pushback is insane. Now, I think it's driven by ideology because the people on the left are so, and even the institutional right is so obsessed, and whether for different reasons. One, I think the left's ideology of control and power, whatever, is one. And on the right, I think it has to do with corporate influence. During the RFK hearings, I really wish some of these Republicans would have backed RFK up more. He's trying to solve the problem. No, he says it. We don't know what the answers will be. So what do we know? We know that they're going to spend $50 million on this. So Dr. Oz said there are 13 contracts that's going to be out there, okay, to really look at these things. Now, here's one thing we do know, okay, is that certain isolated communities, particularly the Amish, don't have these problems. Is it certain vaccines? Is it the combination of vaccines? Is it foods? Is it with the foods? Is it everything together? The body just can't handle all the crap we're putting into it. No one has taken the time to say, let's study all of this for all these different disorders, all in combat, right? You have the delivery mechanisms of these vaccines, everything from low doses of mercury to other formulas, whatever. And you're giving it to these young kids all at the same time, compacted. That's really never been looked at. Okay? Yeah, one by itself might not be bad. And if it's spaced out from the other. But how does it affect your immune system? How does it affect your neurological system, your central nervous system? The pushback to find this out isn't no. Now, maybe people don't want to know. Stegall said this morning on the radio, people don't want to know because then they'll feel bad that they gave their kids. You can't go that way. You have to know for future things and do that. And they also announced this possible treatment for autism. Good thing. Let's give it a try. Okay? Isn't that what, the scientific method is? No one has looked at the combination of this. Okay? All like I said, we know is we can go by charts right now and we can go by anecdotal evidence like the Amish. I want to know what's causing this. Okay, first of all, it affects our healthcare system. How many people you're creating more patients. So I don't understand this. Now, one of the funny things is, RFK was mentioning that they were studying heavily on genetics. That's what they're focusing on, genetics. So he's like, so that would be like for cancer research, particularly lung cancer, ignoring cigarette smoking because it's an environmental thing. Okay. And that's the same thing here. Okay. So I think it is important and we're adding to it, right? Another thing they brought up in the thing was hepatitis B. Why does a kid need hepatitis B? Why? Why are you pushing all these vaccines? We don't know the combination effects of putting all these different things in your system. All these things manipulate your system. Can it handle? I've always believed that the human body's pretty resilient. You can always, my sister says, yeah, my body can handle one good vice, maybe two. Okay, but what we're doing here is boom, 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 and especially at young age with development. There's also, are we over-medicating as well? Take the acetaminophen. Take the ibuprofen, take the antibiotic, take this. That's why we end up with MRSA and all these other super bacteria because these bacteria and viruses mutate based upon the medications. They create more of superbugs, okay, and super bacteria. So we know this happens in medicine, but we just keep doing it because we're a symptom-driven medical society. Okay, that's why they give you you go into the ER with a broken arm. There's your pain threshold. That's the problem, the symptom, and we focus on that. We don't treat the person and the underlying problems. Okay, because if you do that and you solve real problems, guess what? You're not making as much. Big pharma isn't making as much. Maybe you don't need as many medical personnel and shoving so much of our GDP into healthcare. Okay. But these are basic things that we need to look at, okay? It's the same thing with foods. France, 8 additives, okay? Higher smoking rate. I remember when I lived in Europe, I went to France or Italy. The chain smoking, the employees in the department store. I was actually still on a smoking flight, okay? But yet they had lower cancer rates, lower heart disease rates, right? But one, they didn't have stressful lives as much because they had shorter work weeks and things like that. And also their foods were natural. Okay? I would go, in England, I'd ask for a ham and cheese sandwich. I got real cheddar cheese. I got, real turkey, like from the bird, not from the factory, compressed with nitrates and water infused and all that they then slice up on real baked bread. And it was this thick. Not layers upon layers of processed food that's this thick from Subway and it's that. Of course we're going to have more health problems. Okay, because the majority of us are now also white collar, right? Why does the guy from Alabama, the farmer from Alabama who has bacon every day and smokes, he lived to 95? Because he's out there active and he's doing things. He's getting the vitamin D from the sunlight. He's eating constantly, so he's getting the nutrition and his body's burning off all those good things. So there are exceptions to the rule. But you got to look at some common sense. You just throw common sense. And people just believe whatever the institution tells them without looking at them. And that's why RFK constantly harps on the politicization of medicine. It is absolutely true. during COVID, just gave that all away to me. I saw red flag after red flag after red flag when I knew how money was controlled to these NGOs like everything from the American Medical Association, American Dental Association, and their compliance. Now the corporations wrote the rules based upon this. No science. 6 feet. We all know that came out of nowhere. Unbelievable. Okay, and to not want to know is just absurd. Now you're just being petty and ideological. Okay, as if you want all these autistic kids. Like, that's great. Like, it's healthier for that child to be autistic versus not being autistic. You know? So, anyway, so that was there. I thought it was good. I'm really curious to see what comes of it. And I want to see transparency, transparency, transparency. All right, so moving on. Old politics. I know I started with that special election, but here we go. This is national research done by chartered by the New Jersey Globe. Jack Chiarelli, 46, Cheryl, 45, unaffiliated, Chiarelli, plus 21. I can believe that number. I don't know. Quinnipiac came out with a 52, 41, Cheryl. So that's a swing of, 12 points from one candidate to another between those two polls. I understand presidential elections being off that way because you have to model the electorate, you have to factor in or not factor in low propensity voters, certain types of voters, that might be new or whatever. So let's this. Traditionally, the year after the presidential election, the party, especially in Virginia, the party does better who did not win the presidential the year before. That's New Jersey, whatever special elections occur, and Virginia, governor's race, okay? So, and you also have the House of Delegates as well in Virginia. So, I don't know. I don't see Chiarelli. It's still a blue state. Trump, yes, did great. He got within 6 points, 6 points, but you had a lot of crossover vote. Like, Trump won Passaic County because of working class minorities. But a lot of them still voted Democrat right after Trump's name went back to the Democrats. A lot of them were new voters, younger voters. So these people might not even vote. So you can't do that an apples to orange comparison. It's got to be apples to apples. Now, there could be a permanent shift to Republicans. I wonder if the Charlie Kirk thing is going to play a little bit with the negative reactions about that and so forth with all these walk-away types from the Democratic Party we're seeing on social media. I don't know if that's going to have an electoral impact. And the key thing, and I said this at the election, remember, Republicans did not win 24. Trump did. His anti-establishment, anti-globalist, populist, blended with supply-side economics, won the election. Okay? Some core Republican principles did, and that's why some Republicans were very close to Trump's numbers, like McCormick. Okay? Where Rogers fell short. Okay? But I don't know if I'm buying this 46, 45. Now, I don't know the third party situation in New Jersey, but maybe there's some more undecideds out there or whatever. But I think it's going to be tight. Now, remember, in 21, Chiarelli was close, and there were pollsters saying this guy can pull it off, and they gave him nothing. No senators or governors flew in there 4 days before to try to drum up the last-minute support and really galvanize support. A couple, maybe $1 million in ads, and they gave him nothing. And he lost by a little bit. Now, the turnout was low for both sides, but Chiarelli still lost. So he's a name. He's a popular name. She's got some issues as well, but again, in a big D, because D's understand. They'll come out. They're coming out. Remember, they're more of an educated party. When I was a kid, Republicans do a rain dance because we were a more educated party. The low props didn't come out, so we used to do the rain dance before election night. Okay, here it's the other way around now. So, and it's because of that populism, okay, that Trump had. But in this case, whatever. But you never know, okay? So I'm just showing you what's going on in these two diverging polls. I think Quinnipiac is overpolling the Democrat anyway. See, their baseline is overpoll the Democrat. Then throw in a presidential election, and under the era of Trump, then they're clueless. All right. But this is competitive, and they should be putting money into it. And they should be going and going to get this. It's a big deal if you could pick up a state. Governor has such a role in lots of things in that state. Okay, it affects down ballot, helps local party structures. It's to pick this off in a decent-sized state like that. Listen, if 26 and 28, the Democrats have to start defending and putting money in New Jersey, that only helps us hold things in Pennsylvania or make gains there or Michigan or Wisconsin, wherever. So I'm not. Virginia, on the other hand, my position, I don't see the Republican. Matter of fact, I see us doing better on the House delegate side than Winsome Sears. I think Harris might be able to perform well, but it's usually they all the statewide races follow in line because there's always drop off down as people don't follow Attorney General, whatever. But I think Harris is pretty popular. But he's the only Republican and he's running again. But Sears, she had the problem with the MAGA. See, Youngkin won in 21. He got some crossovers because of the school board stuff and the issues in Loudoun County. Okay? Got some independents to come out. So he did shift the need a little bit. But what happened was Southwest Virginia, which is normally 15, 16% of the vote, jumped up to like 19% of the vote and turned out. MAGA came out for Youngkin. They're not, I don't see them coming out for Sears like that at all. All right? They see President Trump in the White House. They're not going to be driven by that. They're going to have, she said some negative things about Trump in the past. She's kind of a vanilla type person. She's highly qualified, intelligent. I mean, I would vote for her. Okay, she probably wouldn't be my first choice, but I would go out and vote if I lived in the state of Virginia. I just don't see in that blue kind of state her replicating what Youngkin did. And I heard there were some issues about Youngkin's apparatus helping her out. I don't know. I haven't been following the details like that, but I thought I'd bring up Virginia since I'm sharing this poll with you from New Jersey. But all right, moving on. Now with the state visit, Jolani come here. Now here we go. Jolani's visit to the this is with the United Nations. I said state visit. I meant United Nations going on today. Jolani's visit to the U.S. won't achieve anything. It has only produced a bunch of embarrassing photo ops for Republicans that will come back to haunt them when they finally realize someday. One, a bloodthirsty terrorist, always a bloodthirsty terrorist. You just know it. Now, who's Jolani? That's right. Up until like, I don't know exactly when, but before the fall of Syria's Assad government, Jolani was the head of ISIS in Syria. He was he's the leader of who the Russians were fighting, the Iranians were fighting, we were fighting in Syria and Iraq. He was part of that leadership. Okay? And he was leader. Now, when it fell, because he was the head of, HTS, okay, which was the conversion name of it, some other groups merged with him. And now he put a suit on, and he's the leader of Syria. Okay? But what Laura Loomer doesn't understand, there's more going on behind the scenes. Now, if you watch my last video, on September 17th, Israel did a proposal where there were 3 zones going into Syria. And the farther you went from Israel, the less they had influence. Like, the third area was completely neutral. The second area was like, they can kind of go in. And the one was like, they're going to control that territory. And it's basically a corridor to Iran, the takeaway with it. We also know many reports of when HTS, before they launched that last bit of operation that could finally caused Assad government to fall, they were fighting constantly with the Syrian military. They were getting aid. When they got wounded, they would get aid and training from the Israelis on that side. Because Israel doesn't care that they're Islamic jihadists. One, the United States has used Islamic jihadists before, and will do it again. Because that's what we do until it bites us in the ass again, okay? But Israel's security, they say if these guys take out Assad, there goes an ally of Iran. We can control the corridor. Iran cannot supply Hezbollah and Hamas or whoever they're supplying and so forth. And it strengthens their position and their foothold. And they're not afraid of a bunch of ragtag, terrorists in control of the Syrian government. That's right. And it's why Assad's government fell. What did Israel start doing? They moved like 50 miles into parts of Syria, beyond the Golan Heights, which they controlled. And they started bombing the shit out of all the military bases. Like, okay, I don't have to worry about a battle with Assad now. I'll just take out, and the Syrian military, which was somewhat trained, I'm going to take out so these guys can't use it and develop it. So I'm just going to have this rump, useless state on my border. And they could care less. That's fine. All right? That's how they find. They see that better to their security, their control of the zone. And I guess now they have free air raid and whatever anytime they want to go to Iran. Okay? And it blocks the flow. So there's a lot more going on here while Jolani's there. So she's making it a purely West versus Islamic terrorist thing. And there's more to it than that. Okay? Because she doesn't want to admit that because she have how strongly of a supporter of Israel Laura Loomer is. And I like Laura Loomer. It's just this is one where we don't see eye to eye on. Okay, and that's fine. All right. But here, this was an interesting one. This is a video, but you get the. I'm not going to show you the whole video, but you get the gist here. Heartbreaking. Muslims are setting fire to entire Christian villages and towns in Syria. In just 20 years, the Christian population in Syria has fallen from 3 million to under 300,000. And now they are trying to exterminate what's left. This is what real genocide looks like. Yeah, exactly. And they did that with Jolani and these groups. Because the Assad government, particularly in the West, gave the Druze, who are a Muslim subgroup, the Alawites, a Muslim subgroup, and the Orthodox Christians sanctuary. And you got to understand they did that for a while. But then in 2011, when we get involved 15 years ago, under the Obama administration, we started to weaken that government. We started supporting the rebels. We put all these lunatic Islamic terrorists in one group, said they were the Syrian rebel army, and we started backing them. Okay, that's where Russia came in to help the government. But they were protected, and a lot of these Syrian Christians fled. Okay, and that's another reason why even in Iraq, Syria, you have a lot of these Shia groups, because the Shia are hated by the Sunni extremist ISIS type groups. And they're isolated because there's no real central government. There's no real central government to protect them. Okay, so the Shia groups are kind of alone. And yes, they're malicious. And because they're Shia, they're backed by Iran. But it's more for their benefit, right? We always hear Iran's tentacles. No, it's for their benefit because of the destabilization that we've caused in the Middle East. And a lot because of the behest of Israel. Because we also believe that it is beneficial for us to have a strong Israeli hegemon in the Middle East. We got Saudi Arabia close enough allies, and Qatar and UAE because they want to sell their oil and stuff like that. And we're never going to want to have some sort of Ottoman Empire again or some sort of Arabic Muslim caliphate. And we definitely don't want on the Shia side. So we're always going to try to keep that stabilized. Israel's strong. And then we have to throw some bones to Turkey sometimes. Okay? All right, because they have that Kurd issue that they're concerned with. So there's a lot more going on behind the scenes, and you have to see and understand. You have to understand why it was British policy was similar to that. I mean, before the creation of Israel, whatever, but what they were trying to do, what we're trying to do, it's very consistent. And so just to be blind and to look at things in the box of just, it's Islamic terrorists, okay? Everything, that's it. We can do whatever we want if we just call it terrorist. Okay. Meanwhile, we're the bigger problems because we're the ones who've empowered them over the years. All right. Boom. This is that map I was talking about. See? There you go. Southern Syria divided up. This area to the right would be like a no-fly. This is going to be like a middle section. The blues, well, the blue is already Israel. The light blue will be annexed by Israel. Okay, and then Israel will have influence over here, right? And this is like where all the Christians were and Alawites and Druze that the Assad protected. But you go right across east to here, you're getting close. You know, Syria, Iraq, you're right near Iran now. And the Shia operations here. But now you've cut off all that route. So, and they just proposed this on the 17th. All right, and this isn't from some anti-globalist. This is from the Institute of Studies of War, okay? So we'll move over to the Ukraine situation a little bit. All right, this is in a Polish publication. Ukrainians who refuse to go to die at the front. Up to 1.2 million men of military age are evading recruitment proposals deployed across the country. Ukrainian authorities this week released a photo of the September 3rd arrest of Arthur Rutko, a well-known athlete and former goalkeeper for the country's two main soccer teams, Dynamo Kiev and Shakhtar Donetsk, which I guess now is Russia. In the image, he appears with three other men as he was intercepted by border agents who prevented him from fleeing the country to avoid serving in the army. Despite the urgent need for troops, authorities warn that around 1.5 million men of conscription age from 25 to 60 years old with no health, professional, family exemptions continue to slip through the net. Ukraine needs around 300,000 troops to replenish brigades that are fighting in half strength and under half strength. And they're pulling the Azov and everything away from us. It's a disaster. So they've allowed people under 22, so 18 to 22, to leave the country now. So that's, I don't know what that's about. I think they've cut it off. They're like, we can't do that because we're losing too many. We have to have some male population that's young left. And I think that's what that's about. It's as if this pool is done, then we're done. Okay. I mean, I think that's what it is. And, the nonsense we keep hearing from even the Trump administration about the war and not many people. The last exchange of bodies was 1,024 to 19. 1,024 Ukrainian bodies were given back to Ukraine from Russia. Russia got 19. Does that sound like whatever? Yeah, it sounds like a 9-1, 10-1 kill ratio in Russia's favor. Okay, and we know they lost 1.7, 1.8 million dead or can't fight or missing. Okay, so it's not even close. All right, and when you have brigades at these strengths, that just tells you. I mean, that just tells you. You know, 2.5 million people have been conscripted or volunteered. You're under half strength, 1.5 million. See how those numbers work out quite nicely. So what we're told is just nonsense. Okay. All right. So speaking of the battle, here's a little update. So Pokrovsk, which I've always been talking about, that's the real heated action all around there. The fighting's still going in the city. Russia's going slow and steady, whatever. But because Ukraine has been pulling it, forces around all over the place. The reserves in Kiev, along the Kharkov, Sumy region, two things have happened. Well, one on here, because I brought it up in my last video, is Kupiansk. They're really driving into Kupiansk. And they're in the center part of the city. If they take the western part of that city, there's no point, because it has to do with the high rises, no defensible positions. They will withdraw from the city. So that will be it. I think that's the second largest in Kharkov region. Volchansk is leveled, and that was months ago. But anyway, so on the left here, now if you know where Pokrovsk is in the southwest Donetsk, just to the northeast of it is those three cities that are last after Pokrovsk falls, Konstantinivka, and then to the north of that is Kramatorsk and Sloviansk, and that's the end of Donetsk being taken. But the first one is Konstantinivka. And it's right there on the west, on the left picture, is the edge of Konstantinivka, and you can see the Russian troops' territories right there, taken in the red. The consolidation of Russian troops in the village of Yagodka near Konstantinovka signifies the actual beginning of the battles for the city itself. This outcome is the result of prolonged preparatory work for almost 2 months. Artillery and multiple launch rocket systems have been methodically striking the rear centers of the Ukrainian armed forces of Druzovka, Slaviansk, and Kramatorsk, reducing the enemy's capabilities, those are the two cities I was just talking about, for supply and reserve redeployment. Thus, the advancing units received a window for forward movement. All right, so yeah, they've been pounding the area, complete control, whatever. Why are the Russians going so slow? Because they minimize casualties, it's open terrain, and the era of drones. They don't even use tanks in forward operations. They use small units, even motorcycles, bicycles, to jump from tree line to tree line, house from house, to minimize casualties. And they pound the supply routes, and they pound the supplies, and they pound the air defense system, and they pound the positions. They use drones, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. The coordinates are sent into strike system, and boom. That's what they do. That is why. Their interest is like a steamroller in destroying the Ukrainian army. It is easier to destroy the Ukrainian armor closer to their supply chains than to do a bridgehead all the way to freaking Odessa or Kiev. And that's what these Western analysts you see on TV, these talking head morons, don't understand. Once the Ukrainian army is completely destroyed and under real defense, they can walk as far as they want then undefended, because the army is now destroyed. And that is what is methodically happening to the Ukrainian army. So on the east, this is to the southwest of not only Konstantinivka, but Pokrovsk, where Zaporozhye meets Donetsk. Where they meet, there's a territory to the west of it called Dnipropetrovsk. And Russia has just been gradually going in it very slowly, but more territory every day. And you can see the brown and these little spearhead and pinchers, and those red boxes are basically where they're concentrating on. And that's because they're so lightly defended, and it looks like Russia has noticed that and is moving in. So what they could probably do is just hold the line at Pokrovsk, drive here, and start to head northeast, up the northeast, kind of behind Pokrovsk, and then to go southwest from Konstantinivka around Pokrovsk, forcing the Ukrainians to possibly withdraw. I don't know. But the point is, they're driving into, this is not even one of the 4 oblasts. So they're there. So they don't have all of Donetsk, but they still have plenty of Dnipropetrovsk territory as well in the same region. And they've taken gradually territory in Kherson and Zaporozhye as well. So I just wanted to give you an update on the war. When you go, hear all these things, we're going to starve Russia and we're going to punish. It's not going to happen, folks. This war is already concluded. Just like in World War II, the Battle of Kursk, you had to play it out, but the war was over. Okay, we knew it. We landed on D-Day, and the Wehrmacht lost at Kursk. It was only a matter of time. That's where we're at in this war. But they got to play it out. All right. So what I would do now is instead of pressuring the Russians, pressure the Ukrainians to accept the realities on the ground and don't lose any more territory. And then you'll maybe save face. And that's what the Ukrainians want in their own polling. So anyway, let me just do a real quick check, see if we had any new updates on those elections or anything new coming out. Yeah, Jason Dickerson won the District 21. We knew that. It was a GOP hold. That's nice to win by 15 points in a special. Yeah, I don't see anything on the Arizona election yet or whatever. So those are some thoughts I want to share with you with everything going on. I kind of like to focus on the edge stories, things you're not hearing that have to do with our populist message and themes and so forth. So I'm going to keep an eye on what's going on with that. Any more court decisions, tariff front, what goes on with the, obviously, the Ukraine war and updates, any election results coming out, polls. We got some elections coming up in Europe. What goes on with these sanctions and or secondary tariffs or tariffs with Russia and that nonsense. I'm still scratching my head and doing a little research on this whole Venezuela situation and what we're really maybe trying to accomplish with all that. And then also what's going on with the, what do you call it? This whole like Charlie Kirk thing and then the violence and Jimmy Kimmel and all that. So anyway, so you can follow me on my X at Patriot Planner 1. Or on my Getter at Patriot Planner. And if you like this video, which I hope you did because I enjoyed making it, please follow, like, and share. All right, thank you very much. And I hope to put a video probably on Friday. All right, bye.